She took a step forward, and then another, until she was close enough that he could move beside her without crowding her space. Her hands trembled slightly, but her gaze remained fierce. "I'm not your pet," she said, her voice strong but softer than before. "I am me, and I choose to do this my way." He nodded, a quiet smile forming, not of triumph but of understanding. "I know," he said simply. "I wouldn't want it any other way." The battle began. The Energy Guardian attacked with ferocity, each strike more dangerous than the last. She moved with skill and speed, dodging and countering, but this time she felt the difference. His presence beside her, silent but ready, offered stability. Every time she faltered, he mirrored her moves, protected her, guided her without taking control. Together they became a seamless force, her fierce independence paired with his calm support. The audience watched in awe as she faced the Guardian with unmatched skill, yet with something new. The grace of someone who could trust without surrendering, who could choose strength alongside connection. She felt it deep inside. Pride, yes, but a pride transformed. A pride that included trust as part of her power. When the Guardian finally fell, energy dissipating into the arena, she stood there, chest heaving, sweat dripping from her brow but unbroken. She had proven to everyone and herself that strength was not about standing alone. Strength was about choosing wisely, about knowing when to fight alone and when to stand with someone she trusted. The whispers of doubt were gone. The crowd erupted in applause, their cheers echoing through the metallic dome. She turned to him, a faint smile on her lips. For the first time she felt not only victorious but whole. The moment of choice had arrived and she had made it. She had not given up her pride, nor had she lost herself. She had only gained something far more powerful: the courage to choose and the wisdom to trust. The arena had quieted after her victory, but the tension lingered, like the calm after a storm. Eyes of thousands of beings were still upon her, waiting to see what the proudest warrior in the galaxy would do next. The whispers had returned, but this time they were different. Will she leave him behind? Some asked. Or will she prove us all wrong? She walked slowly toward him, each step deliberate, her chest heaving from exertion. Her green eyes shone, fierce yet thoughtful, scanning the crowd and then meeting his calm gaze. The world around her blurred, he was all she could see. Her heart thudded in her chest, not from fear, not from pride, but from choice. Every step toward him was a decision, a silent declaration that she did not have to prove herself to anyone but herself. When she reached him, she paused. Her fingers hovered in the air, unsure. Her pride whispered that she must remain untouchable, that no one could ever see her lean on someone. But her heart, a heart she had rarely listened to, whispered something else. Strength was not just standing alone. Strength was knowing when to stand with someone you trusted. She spoke, her voice firm yet gentle. "I'm not your pet," she said, repeating the words she had spoken before, but now they carried a deeper meaning. "I am me, and I choose to stay." He smiled softly, a quiet, understanding smile that made her chest ache in a way she had never known. "I know," he said simply, "and I would not want it any other way." The crowd watched in stunned silence as she made her choice. There was no weakness in her stance, no submission in her actions. She lowered herself slowly and deliberately into his lap, sitting with a grace that was all her own. Every movement was a statement. She had chosen him not because she was powerless, but because she was powerful enough to decide for herself. The murmurs of disbelief rippled through the arena. Aliens who had doubted her stared with wide eyes. She chose to stay? One whispered. And she is still herself? Another nodded, awe in their voice. Humans, they fight differently. But she made it her strength. Her hands rested lightly on his shoulders, her gaze steady. She had never felt such clarity. This was not submission, nor was it surrender. It was proof of something far greater. The ability to trust without losing herself. The courage to make a choice that no one else could make for her. Pride and trust had merged inside her, each amplifying the other. He did not hug her, did not claim her as if she were something to own. He simply allowed her to exist in her own space, supported yet independent. That small act, seemingly simple, meant more than any grand gesture ever could. She realized then that this balance of trust and strength, pride and choice, was what true power felt like. Around them, the crowd erupted into applause. The whispers of doubt were replaced with awe and admiration. They had expected weakness, but she had shown them something far more extraordinary. That strength was not always about standing alone, but about knowing when to let someone stand beside you. Her green eyes met his again, and for a moment no words were needed. Everything that had passed, the battles, the tests, the moments of doubt, culminated in this single act. Sitting in his lap, she was not weak. She was strong, more than she had ever been. She was herself fully, completely, and unapologetically. That day she proved it. To herself, to the world, and to every being who had ever doubted her. Strength and trust could coexist, and choosing to lean on someone did not diminish her. It elevated her. The proud warrior had made her choice. And it was perfect. The arena was alive with cheers, but she barely heard them. All that mattered was the warmth of his presence beneath her, steady and calm. She had chosen to sit in his lap, yet she had not lost herself. Every fiber of her being still screamed strength and pride. She realized fully and deeply that true power was not just in standing alone. It was in choosing when to share the burden, when to trust, and when to let someone stand beside you. The crowd around them erupted in applause, a wave of admiration sweeping over every spectator. Aliens whispered, incredulous. "She didn't lose herself," one said, voice trembling with awe. She became stronger. Others nodded, unable to look away from the remarkable sight. The fierce warrior who had refused to be anyone's pet, sitting in the lap of a human, yet radiating independence and power. She lifted her gaze to meet his eyes. Calm, steady, and unwavering, they mirrored her pride, her strength, and now something else. Acceptance. She had chosen him, and he had chosen to stand with her without claiming her. That simple, quiet understanding filled her heart in a way that words could never describe. She leaned slightly against him, not for protection, not for weakness, but for a shared strength that was more potent than anything she had ever known. In that moment, she realized something fundamental about humanity, about herself. Humans fought differently. Their power was not always in brute strength, skill, or pride. It was in choice, in courage, in compassion, in the ability to stand together while remaining entirely oneself. She had always believed her strength came from being alone, but she now understood that true strength came from the ability to choose, to fight alone or to fight together, and still remain unbroken. The whispers spread beyond the arena. Across the galaxy, word would travel of the proudest warrior who had refused to be anyone's pet, yet had proven the most formidable strength was the strength of choice. Humans, they said, always found a way to inspire, to challenge, and to teach. And today she had embodied that lesson, showing that independence and trust were not opposites but partners. Her friends approached, eyes wide with admiration and surprise. They had expected her to assert her pride, to reject him, to fight alone. Instead, she had shown them a new kind of victory, one that was quiet, personal, and revolutionary. They could see it in her posture, in her calm confidence, in the light in her eyes that spoke of someone who had discovered something far greater than mere strength. Understanding. She looked around at the faces in the stands, the skeptics, the admirers, the young warriors dreaming of their own victories, and she smiled softly, realizing that she had not only proven herself but had also become a symbol of something larger. Humanity had triumphed, not because of weapons or power, but because of courage, choice, and compassion. She had shown that the heart could be as mighty as the fist, that connection could coexist with pride, and that strength was not measured by standing alone but by the courage to stand with someone else and remain entirely oneself. He reached out and placed a gentle hand over hers. She didn't pull away. Instead, she let the simple touch anchor her. affirming the choice she had made. Together they rose from the arena floor, their movements in perfect harmony, fierce, proud, and unyielding, yet united. For the first time in her life, she felt invincible. Not because she had to face the world alone, but because she had chosen to face it with someone she trusted. Her heart, once hardened by battles and pride, now beat with warmth, courage, and certainty. The legend of that day would spread for generations, the warrior who said, "I'm not your pet," and proved everyone wrong, not through rebellion alone, but through the power of choice. She had shown the galaxy that independence could embrace trust, that strength could embrace connection, and that humanity, in its quiet way, could inspire greatness even among the fiercest beings in the universe. She leaned slightly into him, her green eyes sparkling, a soft smile on her lips. She was herself, completely and unapologetically, strong, proud, human. And in that moment, nothing could ever challenge her again. The answer. "Judgment is a human concept," she said simply, as if stating a fact. "I see you, Jason. I accept you as you are." "That is enough." Jason felt his chest tighten. No one had ever said something like that to him before. Not his friends, not his family. To be seen and accepted without conditions, it was overwhelming in the most beautiful way. His mind raced as he realized how much of his life had been spent hiding, pretending, fearing the opinions of others. And now in the quiet light of the station he felt an unfamiliar warmth, a lightness that made him want to breathe more deeply, to finally relax. I don't know what to say," he admitted, his voice small. "No one has ever said that to me before. Not like that, not like they really meant it." Lyris's eyes softened. "Words are only one way to communicate," she said. "But acceptance, true acceptance, transcends words. I observe. I understand. That is all that is required of you." Jason swallowed hard, feeling a lump in his throat. He wanted to laugh, to cry, to do something, anything, but all he could do was nod. "It's strange," he murmured. "But also comforting." Lyris tilted her head slightly as if studying him. "Humans often fear judgment. But you, Jason, have the capacity to face yourself fully. That is admirable. Most do not." Jason felt a flicker of pride, the kind that didn't come from achievements or accolades, but from being truly seen. "I guess I've been scared. Scared of being judged my whole life," he admitted quietly. "Even by people I care about." "Fear is natural," Lyris said. "But your courage lies in choosing to be yourself despite fear. That is humanity at its best." Jason let out a small, relieved laugh. "I never thought I'd hear that from an alien," he joked weakly, though there was no mockery in his tone, only sincerity. "You are human," Lyris replied calmly. "I am alien." "But understanding is possible. Connection is possible. Trust is possible." Jason felt a weight lift off his shoulders. For the first time he realized that vulnerability didn't have to be a weakness. Sometimes showing your true self to a human or an alien was the strongest thing you could do. He looked at Lyris, shimmering softly in the light, and smiled faintly. "Thank you for not looking away, for accepting me. It is natural," she said simply. "To see someone as they are is the beginning of understanding. And understanding is the foundation of trust." Jason felt a quiet emotion stirred deep in his chest, a mix of relief, awe, and something warmer, more intimate. The alien before him, who could have been judgmental, mocking, or indifferent, had instead shown him something rare and precious: acceptance. And he knew without a doubt that this was the start of something more than friendship, something that could change the way he saw himself and the world. Days passed and life in the station began to settle into a rhythm. Jason found himself waking up earlier, taking small walks through the corridors and even laughing more easily. But most of all, he noticed something new, a growing comfort with Lyris. The alien who had once made him nervous with her strange curiosity now felt like a steady presence, a quiet anchor in the chaos of the vast space station. It started with small things. He no longer worried when she entered the kitchen while he cooked. He shared more about his routines, his fears, and even his small habits, like the way he reorganized his clothes multiple times a day. Lyris never judged him. She observed, sometimes asked questions, and sometimes just sat silently, giving him the freedom to be himself. One evening, Jason found himself sitting on the balcony, staring at the distant stars, their light glimmering against the darkness of space. Lyris joined him without a word, standing beside him. The silence was not awkward, it was comforting. Jason felt a quiet trust blooming, one he had never experienced before. "You've changed," Lyris said softly, her voice melodic, almost a whisper. Jason laughed quietly, shaking his head. "Me? How?" "You are calmer," she observed. "You do not hide as much. You speak more honestly. You allow yourself to exist." Jason swallowed, feeling a warmth in his chest. "I've learned a lot from you," he admitted. "About myself, about humans, about how to face things without fear." Lyris's violet gold eyes met his, steady and curious. "You are brave," she said simply. "Not because you have no fear, but because you act despite it. That is strength. That is humanity." Jason felt a shiver run through him. He had never thought of his fears this way before. In his mind, bravery was always something extraordinary, reserved for heroes in stories. But now he realized bravery was quiet, personal, and everyday. It was the courage to be honest, to face the unknown, to show yourself fully, even to someone from another world. For the first time, Jason noticed the small ways Lyris had helped him grow. She asked questions that forced him to think, encouraged him to notice the beauty in simple things, and without knowing it, taught him to trust. Trust was hard for him. Humans had let him down before, and he had built walls to protect himself. But with Lyris, the walls were unnecessary. She didn't demand trust. She simply existed in a way that made it natural to open up. "I've never had someone see me like this before," Jason confessed quietly, the words barely leaving his lips. "Completely. And not just see me, but accept me." Lyris's expression softened. "Acceptance is the foundation of understanding. You humans often fear judgment. Yet the strongest humans are those who face themselves without fear. You are learning that." Jason's chest tightened. Her words were not flattery, they were truth. And truth, as he realized, could be more powerful than any compliment. He felt a swell of emotion, a mixture of gratitude and awe. For the first time in his life, he felt truly seen. "Do you ever get lonely?" he asked hesitantly, glancing at her. "Loneliness is a choice in perception," she said calmly. "One can feel alone even in the presence of others, and one can feel connected even across light years of distance. You, Jason, are learning to see connection where you live. That is rare among your species." Jason smiled faintly, a little choked up. "I'm lucky then. To have you here. To have—" This, Lyris's eyes shimmered softly. "You are strong, Jason, stronger than you know. And the more you allow yourself to grow, the more you will realize the potential of humanity." As he stared at the stars, Jason felt a sense of purpose swell inside him. It wasn't about adventure or recognition. It was about becoming the kind of human who could be brave, honest, and compassionate, even in the face of the vast unknown universe. And with Lyris by his side, not as a teacher, not as a guardian, but as a friend who believed in him, he felt that anything was possible. The bond between them deepened silently, a quiet understanding growing stronger with each passing day. Jason realized that sometimes the most extraordinary relationships were born not from similarity, but from the courage to embrace differences and to see humanity in someone, even an alien who seemed so different at first. In the cold expanse of space, Jason had found warmth, and he knew that this bond, unexpected, alien, and beautiful, was something he would carry with him forever. Life on the station had grown familiar. Jason and Lyris had settled into a rhythm, shared meals, quiet conversations on the balcony, and moments of laughter that felt almost human. But in the depths of space, calm was always fragile, and one morning that fragility shattered. The alarm blared across the station, a harsh, urgent sound that made Jason's heart jump. Red lights flashed along the corridors, casting the familiar rooms in an alarming glow. Smoke began to curl from vents, acrid and thick. The intercom crackled, announcing the words no human wanted to hear. Energy core failure. Evacuate immediately. Jason froze, panic rising like a tidal wave. He had trained for emergencies, but nothing prepared him for this. Nothing prepared anyone for the threat of being trapped in a failing space station. His legs felt heavy, his mind clouded with fear. Jason, move, Lyris commanded, her voice calm, but with an urgency that cut through his panic. She strode past him effortlessly, her silver skin shimmering even under the red emergency lights. Follow me. Jason stumbled after her, coughing as the smoke thickened. The heat from the energy core area made the air almost unbearable. Every instinct screamed at him to run, to hide, to escape, but he realized he couldn't leave the station, not without guidance. He had never felt so small, so fragile, and yet so aware of his own human limits. Lyris moved with precision, dodging sparks and debris, her presence a steady anchor amid chaos. Stay close. Trust yourself. Trust me, she instructed. Her voice carried authority without harshness, a strange combination that made Jason feel he could survive this. As they reached a narrow corridor, debris blocked their path. Jason hesitated, his heart pounding. I can't get through, he shouted, fear threatening to paralyze him. You can, Lyris said firmly. Focus. Human resilience is remarkable. You are capable of more than you know. Her words struck him like lightning. In that moment, he realized that bravery wasn't the absence of fear. It was action despite fear. Drawing a shaky breath, he pushed past the debris, using his human strength in a way he hadn't thought possible. With Lyris guiding him, he made it through the blockage, heart racing, lungs burning, but moving forward. Finally, they reached the observation deck, a space reinforced for emergencies. Other crew members were already there, coughing, exhausted but alive. Jason slumped against the wall, sweat and soot covering him. He felt raw, exposed, and incredibly human. Lyris came to him, placing a hand on his shoulder, a gesture that somehow felt grounding, comforting. You acted well, she said softly. Fear is natural, but courage is acting despite it. That is the true strength of your species. Jason looked at her, chest heaving. You saved me, he whispered, his voice trembling with emotion. No, she corrected him gently. Humans are capable of courage. I only provided the space for you to show it. Her words sank deep into him, filling him with pride, relief, and a strange awe. For the first time, he truly understood what it meant to face fear and find strength within himself. He had survived not because he was fearless, but because he had chosen to act, to trust himself, and to trust the alien beside him. As the alarm finally silenced and the crew began to assess the damage, Jason and Lyris stood side by side watching the distant stars through the reinforced glass. He felt a shift within himself, a newfound respect for human resilience, for the bravery that came from the heart rather than the mind, and for the unexpected bond he shared with someone entirely alien. For the first time, he realized that the universe could be terrifying, vast and indifferent, but humanity, in its quiet courage, could rise above fear, and sometimes all it took was one alien roommate to help him see it. After the energy core crisis, the station slowly returned to its routine. Yet something had shifted in Jason. The fear he had felt, the panic that had nearly frozen him, now felt like a distant echo. He had survived, not because he was invincible, but because he had chosen courage, action, and trust. And much of that, he realized, came from Lyris, who had stood beside him without judgment, without expectation, simply guiding and observing. Jason found himself reflecting on the alien's words. the calm confidence she had carried through the chaos. Humans are capable of courage. I only provided the space for you to show it. Those words replayed in his mind. He had always thought courage was something rare, reserved for heroes in stories. But now he understood. Courage was ordinary people facing extraordinary situations, acting despite fear, and rising above self-doubt. He watched Lyris moving through the apartment, tidying up as if nothing had happened, her silver skin shimmering softly in the gentle artificial light. To Jason, she had become more than just a roommate. She was a mirror, reflecting his potential, his humanity, and his growth in ways no one else ever had. I never thought I'd be grateful for that moment, Jason said quietly one evening, breaking the silence. He and Lyris sat on the balcony, the station lights casting long shadows across the floor. You standing there, when I was naked, scared, embarrassed, it changed everything. I can't explain it, but it did. Lyris tilted her head, her violet gold eyes meeting his. It is simple, Jason. Observation is natural. Acceptance is natural, and when humans allow themselves to be seen, truly seen, growth follows. You have allowed yourself to be seen, and that is why you have changed. Jason nodded slowly. He realized she was right. In that vulnerable, embarrassing moment, she hadn't judged him. She hadn't turned away. She had offered a safe space, free from the expectations and criticisms that often haunted his life on Earth. And in that space, he had discovered something powerful, himself. I've always feared judgment, he admitted, his voice low and sincere. Even from people I trusted, but you showed me that acceptance is possible, even from someone completely different. That means more than I can say. Lyris's expression softened, her hand reaching out gently to rest near his. Acceptance does not require similarity, Jason. It requires honesty, understanding, and courage. You possess all three. You are stronger than you realize. A warmth spread through Jason's chest, a mix of gratitude, awe, and a quiet joy that he had never felt before. He thought of Earth, of his friends, of his fears, and realized that much of his hesitation had been self-imposed. He had limited himself with doubt, embarrassment, and fear. Lyris had shown him a different way, one where vulnerability was strength and where being fully human meant embracing both fear and courage. Do you ever regret living with a human? He asked softly, curiosity mixed with a hint of humor. Lyris's lips curved slightly. Regret? No, humans are fascinating. Your species struggles with fear and judgment, yet still chooses love, courage, and connection. You teach me as much as I teach you, Jason. Jason smiled faintly, feeling a deep, quiet emotion he could not fully name. Gratitude, respect, trust, perhaps even the beginnings of something more profound. He realized that living with Lyris had changed him, not just in small ways, but in ways that would stay with him for a lifetime. He looked out at the stars, their light reflecting in Lyris's eyes, and felt a deep connection to the universe. For the first time, he understood that humanity's true power was not in technology, strength, or knowledge alone, but in the courage to face oneself, the resilience to act despite fear, and the ability to trust and accept others, even when they seemed completely alien. Jason leaned back, exhaling slowly. Life in space was uncertain, vast, and sometimes frightening, but he knew with Lyris beside him he could face anything. And for the first time, he felt truly capable of understanding himself and humanity like never before. Days turned into weeks, and Jason felt a profound change within himself. The station, once intimidating and alien, now felt like a place of possibility. He had faced fear, uncertainty, and vulnerability, and through it all, he had discovered something extraordinary. Not just about himself, but about humanity. Lyris had become more than a roommate. She was a guide, a mirror, and a quiet force that pushed him to see the best of himself. And she had taught him something he had never fully understood. That humanity's power was not only in technology, strength, or intellect, but in courage, resilience, and the willingness to accept oneself. One evening, as they stood on the balcony gazing at the distant stars, Jason spoke softly. "I've realized something," he said. "It's not about surviving space or facing danger or even living with someone from another world. It's about how we face ourselves, how we choose to be brave even when it's hard, how we choose to trust even when it scares us." Lyris's eyes glimmered with that calm, unwavering light.
"And you have chosen, Jason. You have faced your fears.
You have trusted. You have grown. That is extraordinary." Jason felt a lump in his throat. Her words weren't just praise, they were recognition. Recognition of his humanity, of his courage, of the quiet strength he had always carried but had never seen fully until now. He realized that the real journey was not through the corridors of the station or across the stars, but within himself. He thought back to the first awkward morning, the moment he had been caught naked, exposed and embarrassed. At the time he had felt shame, fear, and panic. But that moment, strange and humbling as it was, had been the beginning of everything. Lyris had stood there unflinching, accepting him entirely. And in that acceptance he had found freedom, the freedom to be himself, to face fear and to grow. Jason turned to her, his heart full. "You know, I never thought I'd learn so much from someone. So different from me. From another world." Lyris's gaze softened. "Difference does not diminish understanding. Your species possesses qualities that even I, from another world, find remarkable. Courage, compassion, resilience, and the ability to rise above fear. You have shown me humanity at its best, Jason." He smiled, feeling an overwhelming warmth in his chest. For the first time he truly believed it. Humanity was powerful, not because of weapons or technology, but because of the spirit inside each person. The ability to be vulnerable, to trust, to act despite fear, and to care deeply. These were human strengths that no alien technology or superpower could replicate. Jason realized that Lyris had not just guided him, she had revealed the best of humanity back to him, and in turn he felt a quiet hope for the future, not just for himself but for all humans. If they could embrace their courage and empathy as fully as he now understood, there was nothing they could not face. He took a deep breath, gazing at the infinite expanse of stars. "The universe is huge," he said softly. "Sometimes scary, sometimes beautiful, always unknown. But humanity, we can face it, we can survive it, and we can shine." Lyris reached out, lightly touching his hand, a gesture of quiet connection. "And together we learn. Together we grow. That is what makes life extraordinary." Jason felt the weight of her words settle deep in his soul. He looked at her, the alien who had become so much more than a roommate, and realized that the universe was full of possibilities. Not just out there among the stars, but within the hearts of humans. And in that moment, he understood the ultimate truth. Humanity's greatest power was not measured by weapons, achievements, or knowledge. It was measured by courage, compassion, and the willingness to face oneself fully, without fear. Jason smiled, the kind of smile that comes from knowing you have discovered something rare and profound. "Thank you," he whispered, not just to Lyris, but to life itself, to the universe, and to the humanity inside him that had finally awakened. Above the vast blackness of space, the stars shimmered like distant promises. Jason knew deep in his heart that humanity could rise above anything, endure anything, and shine brighter than any star. Even in the company of aliens, even in the unknown, even in moments of complete vulnerability. And for the first time, he felt truly, undeniably proud to be human.